This is the face of Ronald Popo, a homeless man who's been brutally attacked by a living zombie. On May 26, 2012, he loses his eyes, eyebrows, nose, lips, and face to a man named Rudy Eugene. 80% of his face is eaten on the side of a highway in Miami, Florida, and authorities assume the suspect is having a bad trip due to a new drug on the market that turns people into real-life zombies. However, when the test results come back, the drug report stuns everyone involved. I've done a full breakdown of the case here, and it is grisly.
This woman unalived her neighbor all because he did not accept her Christmas gift. Hi, my name is Ethan, and warning, this is a dark case. To really get into the story, 37-year-old Melissa Young was arrested for the brutal killing of her next-door neighbor Alan Williamson on Christmas Day of 2013. In court, she claimed that mental health issues was the reason behind her attack. However, she told investigators a different story. Her motive was due to Alan not accepting her Christmas gift. What was in the gift was a pair of unisex trainers and a copy of the Sun newspaper's 2014 calendar. Melissa claimed that he would not accept the gift even after she basically begged him, and that's what made her want to kill him. She pleaded guilty to homicide in 2014 and received a 20-year sentence. While in jail, she has also assaulted 2 female police officers, and let this just be a note to always accept a gift.
Amara Carson was only 13 months old when she was the victim of an exorcism, tortured by her mother's boyfriend for 30 hours before finally succumbing to her injuries. Trigger warning with this one, her injuries are horrific and they are listed in the video. I'll also put another trigger warning just before I describe those injuries because honestly, they're not for the faint-hearted. Blaine Milam, 18, had a history of drug abuse. He was taken out of school in 4th grade and is said to have had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. Blaine was also a sex offender after breaking into someone's house and finding a 13-year-old girl's bedroom. He went through her underwear drawer and then left clippings from adult magazines all over her bedroom, with notes stating what he wanted to do to the 13-year-old girl. He was sentenced to 180 days in jail, but served only a quarter of that, before moving to another country where nobody knew of his shameful reputation. In 2008, Blaine met Jessica Carson. He was attracted to her straight away. She was the same age as him, and she had a baby girl. Jessica was worried that the fact that she was a mother would put Blaine off, but it had quite the opposite effect, and on prom night he proposed to her, and she soon moved into his apartment with baby Amara. Fast forward to the end of 2008, and the couple had got involved with the dark arts. They'd both been using a Ouija board to try and contact their fathers who had passed away. According to Jessica, they'd spoken to the devil, who said that baby Amara was possessed by a demon. The devil had said that it was already too late for baby Amara, but if they wanted to save themselves, then the baby had to be sacrificed. Over the next few days, the couple tried to pawn some belongings to get enough money to get a priest to perform an exorcism on baby Amara. When this plan failed, they took matters into their own hands. On December 2nd, 2008, 911 received a call from Blaine to say that his daughter was dead. He said they'd left her in the house asleep and they were gone for a couple of hours looking at a property to move into. When they returned, they found Amara upstairs, dead. The dispatcher urged the couple to perform CPR, but they said that they couldn't and that she was already gone. When authorities arrived at the scene, what they found was absolutely horrific. They went into one of the bedrooms and it was covered in blood. There was blood-soaked bedding, blood-soaked baby clothes, baby wipes covered in blood. Of course, this blood was baby Amara's. The details of Amara's injuries are so extensive that I'll have to go to a part 2. So please join me in part 2 and I'll put a trigger warning at the beginning because Amara's injuries are particularly hard to listen to.
The founder of Adventures with Purpose was just charged with 2 counts of child R. This is a timeline of everything we know. At first, Jared Lasik founded AWP as an environmental cleanup project. He made videos pulling cars out of water and other kinds of trash and debris. But one day he found human remains inside a vehicle, and that video blew up. And that's when he knew he could help people find their missing loved ones who had gone missing in their cars. Most recently, AWP found the body and car of 16-year-old Kylie Rodney, which was incredible because law enforcement couldn't find her for weeks. Since 2019, they've actually solved 23 missing person cases, and they've amassed millions of followers. A couple months ago, though, Jared started showing his face less and less in these videos, but no one knew why. Well, now we know. On November 3rd, Jared Lasik was charged with 2 felony counts of child rape. These documents allege that when he was 17 years old in 1992, he raped a cousin in Utah, and this child was just 10 or 11 years old. Jared's first court date is November 30th. If you want to see the emails where he basically admits to all of this, go to part 2.
This is why I would never hire a stranger for a kid's birthday party. And if the photo's not bad enough, the mystery behind it is so much worse. And a reminder before I dive in that if you like all things spooky and true crime, check out my podcast. There's a link to it in my profile. So in the 1940s, the McLaren family in Houston, Texas was having a birthday party for their daughter, Rose. They hired a clown for the party, but an hour before the party started, they get a call from the company saying that the clown they hired was no longer available. They were going to send someone else in his place. And the parents were like, okay, fine, whatever. But then this man shows up to the party. And the kids are all terrified of him. No one really wants to take photos. The man stayed at the party for about 20 minutes and then just disappeared. But get this. After he left, the clown that they hired showed up to the party. And he apologized for being late. And the mother is like, what are you doing here? You canceled on us. And the clown's like, no, I didn't. And it was at that moment that one of the parents noticed that this little boy pictured here was missing. The little boy was never found, and the identity of this man remains a mystery even today.
They're putting razor blades on gas pump handles. A lot of these challenges and little weird trends I pass on because I don't want to make them worse. But it's in just about every news outlet. It looks like it's contained in North Carolina right now. But you know how it is, because of this media attention, there's going to be copycats. They call that the Streisand effect. Grabbing a hold of a razor blade would suck. But because of how my brain works, I've already figured out a way to make it way worse. The people that are doing it are going to get caught. Gas stations have cameras all over the place. But for the time being, it might not hurt to take a quick look before you put your hands on.
This man lived with the body of his murdered girlfriend for days before he was arrested. The crazy thing was, he was completely innocent. Let's talk about the crazy and tragic case of Ryan Waller. On Christmas Day 2006, Ryan Waller and his girlfriend Heather Kwan failed to show up to his parents' house for Christmas dinner, which they found very out of character. Concerned, they called the police and just asked them to do a wellness check on the couple. When they arrived at the house, they found Heather dead from a gunshot wound to the head, and Ryan was still alive, but he had a really bad black eye as if he'd been punched several times. Assuming this to be a domestic fight gone way too far, they swiftly put Ryan in the back of their car before examining the crime scene further. They brought in medics to look at Heather, while Ryan was left waiting in the car without anyone looking at his black eye. The police then took Ryan in for questioning and photos, and for a long time the questioning officer struggled to understand what Ryan was saying, as he wasn't making a lot of sense in his statements. Amongst all the strange things that Ryan was saying, he then told the officer that he was shot in the eye, to which the officer told him that couldn't be true because he wouldn't be sat here, he'd be dead. Throughout this strange interview, Ryan kept insisting that he was tired and he just wanted to go back home and go to bed, which the officer told him he was not going anywhere. The interview went on for ages, with Ryan not able to string full sentences together, but he did mention some key things such as his former roommate Richie Carver shooting him, but this was ignored amongst the other random things that he was coming out with that didn't make sense. 6 hours after the police first found Ryan and Heather, the officer finally decides to move in closer and take a look at Ryan's injuries. His demeanour then changed from cold to caring as he began to realise that Ryan had actually been shot in the eye, and he called for a medic as he uncuffed him. Ryan was then rushed to hospital, where he lost both his eyes and a large part of his brain after it was confirmed he was shot in the face twice. Police eventually did arrest and convict the former roommate Richie for the murder, as well as his father Larry, who helped with the attack. Police received a lot of blame for taking so long to help Ryan, and sadly, Ryan suffered a lot of seizures from his injuries and unfortunately died 10 years later at the young age of 28. And that concludes this incredibly tragic story. Like and follow for more true crime cases just like this one.
This is probably one of the worst true crime cases that I've ever heard of. In August of 2019, David Sumney brutally beat his mom to death and then took 277 photos on his cell phone of the gruesome crime scene. The photos included selfies with her body, posing with blood smeared on his face, and even a photo of him giving a thumbs up. After he brutally killed her, he put her body in the bathtub and proceeded to record himself washing off her corpse. When the family couldn't get a hold of 67-year-old Margaret Sumney on August 31st, 2019, they knew something was wrong. After trying for 2 days with no success, they had the police conduct a welfare check at her Pennsylvania home. When authorities couldn't reach Margaret, they forcibly entered the home where they discovered shattered glass everywhere and blood smeared on the walls and furniture. Upon investigating, they then found Margaret's badly beaten body in her bathtub. According to the autopsy report, she died from blunt force trauma to the head, neck, and torso. When interviewed by authorities, David initially stated he had nothing to do with his mom's murder. But when police searched his phone, they found the 277 gruesome photos. Along with that, authorities also found Margaret's jewelry and 3 of her blank checks inside of a hotel room where David had been staying. David was arrested on September 4th, and during his trial, a defense expert stated that at the time of the murder, he had taken a high dosage of Adderall, which caused diminished mental capacity. His lawyer argued that the murder was strictly due to drug and alcohol use. David was initially facing a first-degree murder charge as well as abuse of a corpse, and if he was charged with that, he would have faced life in prison without parole. But unfortunately, he was allowed to enter a guilty plea, which dropped both of those charges, and instead he pleaded guilty to third-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison, but since he's been behind bars since his arrest in 2019, he could potentially be released in just 17 years. And the scary part is that according to prison employees, they consider David a model prisoner who attends Bible studies with other inmates. And this makes the reality of him being released so soon a real possibility. It should be noted though that David had been arrested twice in the past for assaulting his mother and once for attacking his now deceased father. Adding to this, he also faces a pending case for allegedly waterboarding and strangling an ex-girlfriend, which also took place the year of the murder. David Sumney is a terrifying man, and the fact that he could ever be released back into society is a terrifying thing.
As someone who's watched probably hundreds of horror movies, I'm pretty much completely desensitized. But every once in a while, I come across a few horror movies that do mess me up for a good couple of days. So here's my list of the most disturbing horror movies I've ever seen. First up is an absolutely insane French horror movie that I haven't really seen anyone talk about yet. Frontiers is about a group of young thieves who are trying to pull off a robbery that goes terribly wrong. Trying to regroup, they end up at a nearby family-run motel. Not knowing that this family is a family of who, let's just say, have special plans for one particular member of the group. A young pregnant woman named Yasmin. Next up is possibly an even crazier horror movie that I literally cannot stop talking about. But I realize there's still people out there who have not been traumatized by this movie yet, so I'm putting it on the list anyway. This movie is not okay. If you haven't seen this movie yet, I dare you to watch it with no context. Let yourself be surprised, it's better that way. But I'm saving the best for last. Or worse, depending on how you look at it. Last on the list is the only movie I think is more disturbing than Serbian film. Simply titled Trauma. The first 5 minutes of this movie is more messed up than anything I've ever seen in my entire life. By a lot. This is about a group of friends who run into the son of a brutal... This movie includes pretty much everything that is wrong with the world. Only watch this movie if you're into very extreme horror. And follow for more.
This kid was getting chased by a bully when he runs into his friend's house. The bully was trying to rob him, but fortunately his friend's dad jumps into action and scares off the bully. The dad said he can come over any time, and it's safe to say he was very lucky to have made it there without being harmed.
New photos have been released of crime scene investigators doing their job at the house where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered. For those of you who are new here, my name is Emily. I'm a certified crime scene investigator and just finished up my crime scene investigation schooling. Let's talk about what I think of these photos and what the crime scene investigators are doing. There are quite a few photos, so I'm going to go through each one that I find particularly relevant, or rather what changes my opinion on the suspect and what happened. So in this video, I'm going to talk about this window, okay? We see that the crime scene investigators are paying particular attention to this window. It looks like this person is dusting for fingerprints. Let's hope that they get a full fingerprint, because the fingerprint is in fact the best piece of evidence. Yes, better than DNA. Why? Because every person's fingerprint is completely unique to themselves. And it's the only thing that an investigator can take to court and say with absolute 100% certainty it is a match. Now, I originally, when hearing the news about a door being left open, assumed it was the front or back door that had this key code. This photo has changed my mind. I think that the suspect or suspects entered through the window and left through this sliding glass door. That would explain why they would be able to dust for fingerprints on the outside. This now changes my opinion of who the suspect or suspects might be. It now looks like this person didn't have the code, and these people or person actually found their way in through an unlocked window or unlocked glass door. Once again, this is just my opinion based on these photos. So based on these photos, my new working theory, like I said, is that they came in through an unlocked window and left through the sliding glass door, which was the door that police stated in their press conference was left open. To me, this is crucial because it opens up the pool of suspects to me. If they did in fact come in through an open window, left through the sliding glass door, that means they didn't have the key code and may not have known these 4 victims at all, or didn't know them very well at least. Let me know what you think.
This is the case of Dylan Lenz. He met a girl on Snapchat and then stabbed her and ran her over twice with his car in a Walmart parking lot. Dylan and Abby met on October 15th of this year. They met on Snapchat and decided to meet up, so Abby sent Dylan her address and he went to her house to go pick her up. Their first stop was Walmart, so they walked around and got back in Dylan's car, and they were getting ready to head to another store. Well, this is when Dylan grabbed Abby by the throat and then stabbed her in the shoulder multiple times. Then, with him being in a panic, he unlocked the car doors and let Abby get out of the car, and she started running and screaming for help. Then Dylan freaked out even more, now being worried that he was going to get in trouble for an attempted murder, so he took his car and started chasing her. While Abby was running away, she was trying to run downhill and she tripped, and this is when Dylan ran her over with his car twice. A 911 call was made by a witness, and they saw a car that was making bouncing motions and squealing their tires. On the floor, it appeared to be something that looked like a human body. The police rushed over there, but not before Dylan fled. He saw a car that was coming in his direction, and he got scared and drove off. When they got there, they saw that Abby had life-threatening injuries, so they rushed her to the hospital, and she was later airlifted to UW's Children's Hospital in Wisconsin. The next day, they went to go talk to Abby, and they saw that she had a spinal injury where she had no movement below her waist, both of her ankles were broken, and she had road rash from her shoulders down to her feet, on top of other injuries. She is still in the ICU, and I'm going to leave a link to the GoFundMe in the comments. Since Dylan fled the scene, they had a look at the surveillance footage from Walmart, and they were able to get the license plate number, which was linked to Dylan, so they went over to his residence. When they got there, they saw that there was blood on Dylan's car, there was grass jammed into the car frame, and that there was a broken license plate where the rest of it was found at the crime scene. They also found blood on the inside of the car, which Dylan's mom said was from the victim. Dylan was immediately arrested and admitted that it was premeditated and said, quote, "While I was in the store, I was like, this is the last day she's going to be alive. This is the last night of her life. I was out of control. I wasn't thinking. My body just took over." After the ordeal, he also texted his friend saying, "Oh no, I'm in big trouble. I really messed up this time. I did something really bad and I'm going away for a long time for this." He also said during questioning that if he didn't flee, he was going to put her body in a trash bag and throw it away, or he would bury it. After 2 weeks in jail, a $150,000 bond was posted and he made bail. Contingent upon his bail, he was told that he was not able to contact Abby or her family either directly or indirectly. He was also told that he had to stay at home with the exception of going to school, work, court hearings, or doctor's appointments. Since his release, he entered a treatment program that was suggested by his doctors, and he is not going to school or work. Dylan is being charged with first-degree attempted homicide, and his maximum time in jail would be 60 years. His preliminary hearing is November 17th.